the postseason's finally here. Technically, the postseason was last week. You had the SEC tournament, but this is the real postseason. Auburn baseball is a number 4 seed in the entirety of Division I for this weekend's regional in Plainsman Park. And if they win, the first ever super regional in Plainsman Park. Welcome to the Auburn Baseball Show. Lindsay Crosby, second to Sheriff Brad Law. And before we get into the specifics of the regional and the preview of all these teams and everything, how are we feeling about Auburn being a number 4 seed? I've seen a little bit of pushback on the internet from fans who are just kind of salty their team didn't play better, but saying that Auburn feels like they're a little overseeded at number 4. And one of the radio hits this week, I was actually asked to defend Auburn seeding at number 4.
I mean, the only thing I can think is Auburn does have the most losses of just about all the hosts except for Ole Miss, and that's just about it. Like, that's the only thing I can see people being angry about. But they did have number 1 strength schedule, and they finished with a number 3 RPI. And so, I mean,
yeah,
that's the only thing I can think of.
You know you're going to have a tough schedule in the SEC. Every SEC team has a tough schedule. Yeah. And I think it's all a matter of do you dive deeper than the record? Is Auburn the only national seed with fewer than 40 wins? Sure. Okay. But look at the schedule. And I get it. If it was us and we're making the argument against some other team that had just the record, we'd say the same thing. But then I would hope we would be wise enough or honest enough to dive a little deeper in the numbers and see that Auburn challenged itself outside of conference play. And they have wins over 3 different conference champions on their non-conference schedule. They have 2 wins over Georgia Tech. They won 7 of 10 conference series. Yeah. I think it's completely justified. I don't think I don't think you have to defend it at all. I think the numbers speak for themselves. And, boy, we freak out way too much about what happens the last weekend and the SEC tournament. SEC tournament can help you probably, but it can't hurt you all that much. And I think we saw that last week. And we see the committee looking at the entire resume, not just the last week, not just the last month, but maybe more so in baseball than in the other sports. What you do in February and early March matters. What you do in those midweeks matters. We've seen it over and over again.
Yeah. I think the big takeaway, and to kind of touch on both of what you guys said, is I kind of explained the number 1 strength of schedule. And I said, Auburn played 9 games against non-SEC opponents who made the tournament this year. And Auburn went 8-1 in those games. Mm-hmm. So, it's not just we have a strong conference, we'll play a bunch of cupcakes. It was, like we all said, the hardest schedule in the country. Auburn did very well through that schedule, number 3 RPI. I'm fine with it. Obviously, we're all going to be fine with this, but I just thought it was really good how it kind of, there's an easy case to make. And unlike 2023, where you had some conversation about Auburn being a host and if they deserved it or not, and then losing their own regional, you don't have to answer the question about oh, hey, do you have anybody on the committee this year? No, you don't. And you got this pretty handily. What do we think of the draw, right? So you have NC State, you have Stetson, and you have Central Connecticut State. Central Connecticut State. Took me a second to kind of get that right because it's so specific. Central Connecticut State. What do we think of the draw? I feel like this is one of the easier regionals, knock on wood, compared to how some other teams have a little more of a loaded bracket.
Mm-hmm. I agree. But I mean, if you look at last year's regional too, you had Southern Miss, Sanford, and was it Yale? Was that right?
Yale.
Penn.
2 years ago, yeah.
Penn. Oh, yeah, sorry, 2 years ago. I mean, you would look at that and think it was easy other than I compare Southern Miss to an NC State at that time of that season because NC State could be a sneaky team because they're always around. They're always good. But, I mean, yeah, this is definitely one of the easier ones if you're looking at it on paper.
You guys want some data? How you feel about data? Would you love some numbers?
Love data, Brad.
If you look at the RPI of every team in the NCAA tournament field. The average RPI for Auburn's regional is 70 and a quarter.
Okay.
That's the second highest number in the field. So the only average RPI that's higher is the Baton Rouge regional, which is 84 and a half. So if you want to make the case that LSU has the easiest regional, you can do it based on RPI.
Yeah.
If you want to make the argument that Auburn has the second, and I'll use easiest in quotes because you respect every opponent, nothing's easy, everything is earned. I feel like we're not going to be bulletin board material for anybody anyway on this show, but it's important to state that you don't take anything for granted. But just the numbers, the RPIs of the four teams in Auburn's regional: 3, 33, 62, and 183 for an average of 70 and a quarter. Second highest number in the field. By the way, number one is Hattiesburg. Their average RPI, 33.
Ouch.
That's a tough region. They got 19, 13, 40, and 60. The 4 seed in the Hattiesburg regional has a 60 RPI in Columbia.
Ooh. And the number 2 seed is a team that's going to travel pretty well because they're not that far away in Alabama. Yeah,
and with a better RPI than the host.
Yeah.
So again, it's more than just RPI, but I did think it was interesting that when we start comparing regionals, that's one. Can I give you another interesting note? The Coastal Carolina regional, the Conway regional.
Yep.
The RPIs are 8, 18, 66, and 74. The 4 seed in Fairfield is 74. There are only 2 regionals, Hattiesburg and Conway, where the 4 seed has an RPI of under 80.
Golly.
So the one that Auburn is matched up with has a 4 seed that, at least from an RPI perspective, is going to come in and should be competitive.
They've drawn some of the most, so it's Fairfield. They have one of the best walk rates in the entire country. It's a top 10 market, 14.7%. That's just irritating on the mound because you have to be practically perfect.
Yeah.
So, but looking at the matchups here in Auburn and looking at Auburn, NC State, Stetson, Central Connecticut, kind of taking them one at a time, it feels like for NC State, what you need to do is you need to get to their pitching, right? When you look at their starters, they've got 3 guys who are going ERAs in the 4s in conference play. I'm sorry, in for the full season. A little bit worse in conference play. That's common, but ERAs in the 4s on the full season. And the Clemson series, where they swept Clemson, I think kind of shows the blueprint of what they're wanting to do by getting these guys to be efficient, go deep into games, and just minimize exposure to the bullpen. But I do think one of the areas they're susceptible, and I like how Auburn matches up here, is the defense isn't very good. And what I'm kind of using for that, because there's not a lot of defense stats out there, what I'm using is their ERA of 5.02 is like 70th in the country this year. But their fielding independent pitching, it's like 35th. It's like 5 and a quarter. Where I had that backwards. I'm sorry. 5.25 ERA, 5.02 FIP. So they're struggling a little bit to convert all of the plays. And I think that's a place where they can be susceptible with Auburn's ability to put balls into play. Like the flip side of this is Auburn has a very good defense that minimizes the damage that the pitchers are giving up when they allow a ball to be put into play. So I think the path to beating NC State is your offense has to get to their starting pitchers early and get them out of the game.
Yeah, I agree.
I would agree with that for sure. Look, the NC State won 6 ACC series this year. They swept 2. They won 6. They had 2 games that were canceled because of rain. One of those would have been the rubber game of another series. Okay. They've lost 3 games in a row coming in. They lost their last 2 conference games, plus their only game in the ACC tournament. So, again, you got to respect this opponent coming in, and don't think we can't put too much emphasis on the fact that they've lost 3 games coming in. This is a good team. They have enough pitching if you don't get to them early that they win weekends.
Yeah.
And we talked about that. That's one of Auburn's strengths is they found a way to do it 7 out of 10 times where you win 2 out of 3. And NC State found a way to win 6 of those series and might have had another had the rubber game not been washed out.
Do we believe the mutual record thing where like you play the same opponent that they did? This is how they did this versus this is how you did. Because there is some overlap in the schedules here. They played Ohio State and Alabama at the Jack's College Baseball Classic. We've gone to that before. They lost both those games. Okay. They brought in Wright State for 3, same as Auburn did. Wright State's a postseason team this year. Auburn swept Wright State. NC State swept Wright State. And then trying to make sure I have this correct. I don't try to remember. They did not play Georgia Tech, who won the conference. We did play Georgia Tech. So like you don't have a ton of overlap, but what you do have is they didn't beat a team that you lost to. And you beat teams that they lost to. And I don't know how applicable that is. Like, Sonny, when you're trying to prepare for something like this, a team that you're not familiar with, it's on short notice, right? How do you guys approach the idea of this weekend where you're going to have 3 different opponents for 3 games? Like, what's the mindset? Is it, let's find commonalities and see how we compare against them? Is it just we do our thing and we're just going to try to get the information we can get on them? How do you approach this?
Well, it's a good thing that they played in Globe Life this year because that'll prepare you for a regional.
That format.
You're playing 3 teams. Yeah, 3 teams that you will never play during the year. Just like now, 3 teams that they haven't even come close to playing during this year. And so, you approach it more as like, okay, you worry about who you're playing first, and then you go on because you can't prepare to play NC State in game 2 if you don't win game 1. And also, if NC State doesn't win game 1 either, you got to be ready to play whoever. So it's not really about like who's all in it. It's just about like which game do you have right now and going from there.
Yeah. I don't know how much you put in games that are much earlier in the season. I mean, we've seen Auburn guys get hot. We've seen guys cool off. We've seen guys get into rhythm. I think all that kind of plays a factor. So I think it's a brand new slate, brand new film, brand new, what does this guy throw? What do their hitters do? What's the plan of attack today, this weekend?
Yeah. And I think when you look at this weekend, one of the questions that I have is the rotation. I don't believe we've gone on the record, like Butch has got on the record yet with what they're going to do. My expectation is you throw Cam Tilley first. He started your SEC tournament game, and then you did sim games with both Sam Dutton and Christian Chatterton simply because you wanted them to get some work in. But given the matchup, right, you're facing Central Connecticut State, my gosh, in that first game, it feels like you probably stick with that same pattern, right? You start with Cam Tilley, you then have Sam Dutton for what could be your toughest matchup on paper if NC State and you both win. And then you close the weekend with Christian Chatterton on Sunday. Does it feel like that's what Auburn's likely to do here? Or do we think they're going to change things up, maybe get Dutton out early?
I think if they win game 1, if they throw Tilley out there game 1, maybe they save Dutton for game 2 and throw Chatterton. I don't know. But, I mean, if knowing them, I know they're just going to still go with, Tilley, Dutton, Chatterton because that's what's been working. And, if you happen to have to go to a second championship game, you get Myers out there if he hasn't thrown yet.
Yeah. It's the interesting question of the weekend.
Yeah.
The interesting question is, do you go Tilley, Dutton, Chatterton, or do you go Dutton, Tilley, Chatterton? I don't know, guys. I think if I had to make a prediction today, it wouldn't shock me at all to see Dutton go out there to start things. You need to get him back in rhythm. He's been the Friday night guy. Like, you can either argue that his last 2 starts were a result of being out of rhythm, pitching a day early, kind of, or a matter of innings. And if it's the former, well, then you pitch him on Friday, and that allows you. Look, you can't get to a second game. You can't get to that, that Saturday game without a loss unless you win on Friday.
Yeah.
And so I think that Friday game, regardless of the RPI of the opponent, Central Connecticut State is going to throw a guy that's 10-2 with like 6 complete games.
Jeez.
So, yeah. Now, they're 7-inning complete games because they've just been battering people.
Yeah.
But still, there's a part of me that thinks that he has started your weekend so many times and so successfully that he starts the weekend for this regional.
And and now that I think about it too, if the innings are the concern, which I've talked to a couple of people in the program that they suspect that might be it. None of that's official, obviously. It's kind of just conversation about, hey, what do you think's going on, right? Kind of off the record stuff. But if you do have such a talent advantage over Central Connecticut, and we're going to get to their offense in a second. I'm actually kind of impressed with a lot of what they do on offense. And you think this could be a game that Auburn's offense could end early via some sort of run rule, maybe it is worth getting Sam Dutton into that game, let him go, like on Saturday when he threw that sim game, he only went about 50 pitches, right? Mm-hmm. Like they weren't doing a full length game. If you're worried about workload, you may be able to get a shorter start in this one if the two talent levels of the teams really end up making this lopsided. You can get him out early. You can get some of the youngsters in to pitch a little bit while maintaining the lead and then being able to turn around and have him for the next weekend if you advance. So I kind of feel like there is an avenue either way where you could do that. And that it's Cam Tilley or Chatterton on Saturday because Tilley's been the one who, working in relief, he's moved around a ton. He can probably do whatever you want him to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think you'll definitely see him start again. But what I loved from the SEC tournament was Cade Fisher. Cade hit 92 multiple times with his fastball in Hoover. That was great to see. Now, that was after 2 weeks of not pitching. So, or in a game anyway. These guys are getting work. They're getting bullpens and stuff. But we hadn't seen him in a game in 2 weeks, and he was firing 92. So a Tilley to Fisher kind of transition could be awfully – like Auburn didn't lose its SEC tournament game because of its pitching. That could be a really effective combo in a Saturday game.
Sonny,
they lost on one swing, and Tilley did great. That was a good bounce back from Ole Miss for sure with the pitching.
Sonny, looking at like Tilley and Fisher back to back and the different kind of styles that they have, right? Tilley throws a little bit harder. He's got that splitter that's really kind of just absurd. Fisher's throwing a little bit softer, 92 is notwithstanding, throwing a little bit softer from the other side of the plate, or other side of the mound and everything. How does changing from one look to that drastically different look mid-game, how is that going to impact an opposing offense? And is it maybe better to, when you're facing a lower level opponent, like a Stetson or a Central Connecticut, is it maybe something where you want to go with the best velo you can get because they're probably not as used to seeing that? Or is it something where just keeping them uncomfortable, no matter which guys you throw, is the key there? I threw like 3 questions at you. I'm sorry. That's
I mean, definitely the Tilley Fisher or even the Tilley Myers matchup, because it's just 2 totally different looks. Like you got Tilley throwing harder with that split, and that's what you're prepared for. If Tilley can turn the lineup over twice and then hand it off to either Fisher or Myers, and I bet we see Myers early so that he can come back on Sunday. Or would it be a Monday game if it has to go to Monday? Mm-hmm. But just the pair of those two and the different arsenals they have will throw off just about any lineup, at least for another. Like if Tilley can go 2 times through and then Fisher can turn it over 1 time, you look up and you're in the 7th or 8th inning, you're in a good spot.
Yeah. And without the midweeks and with so much rest, I mean, you got your full artillery now too. Parker Carlson and Andreas Alvarez and all those guys are good for if you need a matchup. Like you could play matchups lefty righty a little more liberally this weekend than you have previous weekends.
Yeah,
if you want.
Okay, looking at Central Connecticut, I want to talk about their offense real quick because I think we have, and I've been guilty of this too. We have this idea when you see a team come in from a smaller conference with an RPI in the 100s and all of that to think, oh yeah, you're just going to steamroll them. Runs per game, they're 11th in the entire country. They're scoring 9 runs per game. As a team, they're batting .330. It's the third best batting average in the entire country. Strikeout rate, 12.8%. Best strikeout rate in the entire country. On base percentage of .436. It's fifth best in the entire country. Like, at a certain point, a ball is a ball and a strike is a strike. And if they're reading these pitches well, they're not chasing a lot. They're getting on base a lot. They don't hit for a lot of power. 36 homers as a team, right? But it feels like this is, if you're going to have to face a good offense, this is probably the best case scenario for Auburn, because the thing that they're really good at, which is drawing walks, is a thing that you're also very good at not giving up, is walks. Am I kind of off base with saying, like, you probably have, it's probably better to face them than it would be to face some other, you know, a Holy Cross or a Little Rock or a Binghamton or something, because of the way they're built?
Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, that's the, looking at Central Connecticut, you'd think like, man, this team's really good. Like, looking at their stats and stuff, obviously they might not be facing, when they see Tilly throw this
question,
yeah. When they see Tilly throw, that might be the first 95 they've ever seen this year. But you're right. You're right. Taking the balls, that their walk rate is incredible for as a team. That is unreal. And so
I'll tell you, that's another reason I like Dutton against this team, because he's got that highest strike percentage among the starters, and you just can't afford to give away anything when you get into the postseason. One turns into two turns into four. I mean, it just multiplies. So, their numbers are pretty. Like, look, they're beating Mercyhurst and Fruitdale and
Central Arkansas.
And, I mean, they're putting up huge numbers against these teams, and they can't do anything about the teams that are in their conference. I mean, they can just go out and beat the devil out of them, and that's what they've done.
Yeah, it feels like this is a winnable draw for Auburn this weekend. And if you project out, and I'm going to take the liberty, knocking on wood here, of assuming Auburn wins on Friday, assuming NC State wins on Friday, and you meet up with them on Saturday, I think Brad's like on base with this, where you've got to throw Dutton in game one, and then you go to, I'm guessing, Tilly with the piggybacks that we talked about here.
Yeah.
Is there any concern about Auburn's offense? It feels like they've been better at times. Some of these guys, Ike Irish, have been better on the road, which he had a very hilarious answer to that when we talked to him last week. He was like, there's nothing quite like hearing an opposing ballpark go silent. I just thought it was a great quote. Sonny, I'm sure you've done that plenty as well, just kind of hearing them get quiet. Is there any concern about facing NC State and the fact that they have seen hitters of this caliber? They do know how to get these guys out, because we're kind of assuming you have just a natural talent advantage over Central Connecticut. But against NC State, we talked about it all comes down to pitching. Is there any reason to be concerned in a one-game sample that Auburn could struggle and go to the losers bracket?
So are you like saying if they go to the losers bracket, how would it be handled?
Or no, just like should our expectations be Auburn's in the winners bracket on Sunday, needing one game to host a super? Should that be our expectation going into this? Yeah,
100%. I mean, they've played 14 SEC teams who are better than NC State, in my opinion. And so but I mean, regionals are crazy. Teams turn into super teams no matter where they're at. So, I mean, obviously, like what we did in the regional in 22, we just outscored everybody. That's the most ideal. So, I mean, if they score 8 runs each game that they play in, I think it's not even close. Yeah. You know, but if the offense is there, it's not going to be a problem.
I have a lot of confidence against right-handed pitching.
Yeah,
like Auburn's left-handed lineup is pretty consistent, has been throughout the year. And if you look at NC State, their Friday and Saturday starters are lefties. So, I mean, one is 6'2", 192. The other 6'1", 193. So they're not like, they're not like Randy Johnson type of lefties. But when we have seen Auburn struggle offensively, and it happened at Ole Miss with their Friday starter, It happened with Lampkin, who, oh, by the way, was coming off one of the great performances in SEC pitching history coming into the SEC tournament. But, these dynamic left-handed pitchers, they've been able to quiet the bats a little bit at the top of the order and on down. So, that's the only thing that gives me pause. But again, with respect to every opponent, Auburn's the number 4 national seed. Auburn will be favored in every game it plays until its second game in Omaha, according to the seeding, the rest of the way. So I think there should be a tremendous amount of confidence in what this lineup can do, regardless of who they face, with all due respect to the opponents.
It's fair. Okay. All right. Can answer that question for me. All right. So expectations for the weekend, and let's discuss who needs to, or I guess who's going to be the X factor for Auburn if they were to win this regional and advance to their first ever Super in Plainsman Park. I'm obviously, I think we're all picking them to go 3-0 in this case, but who is the one player that needs to, I'm not even going to say be dominant this weekend, but just have a very, very good weekend for them to make the Super? Offense, pitching, doesn't matter. Defense, whatever. I want to hear your thoughts on who has to be the guy this weekend. Like, the easy answer is Ike Irish. I mean, he just has to continue doing Ike Irish things. But at a certain point, you can work around him. We've seen them do it. So who has to step up?
I was just about to say Ike's just gonna get just pitched around. He's not gonna get anything.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's got to be Chris Rembert. He's going to hit leadoff. He's going to set the tone. If he comes out swinging game one, I think the whole lineup's going to go. Because if you take Chris, swinging it well, and then you got Ike, who they're going to pitch around, that's maybe 2 base runners in the inning to start off the regional. That that could just set it from there.
Yeah.
Against Southeast Louisiana, we scored 10 straight runs in the first inning. So
I remember that
pretty much set it from there.
That was fun. That was fun.
Yeah, if Derek Fabian could just pull a Cole Foster and homer, twice in the first inning, that'd be really huge. Seriously. Yeah, I don't know who I pick on this because part of me wants to go like what Sonny said, one of those right-handed hitters at the top of the lineup, either Rembert or Guevara. But because Ike's probably, they're going to be careful with Irish, and rightfully so. So you should. Yeah. Cooper McMurray batting behind Ike should get a chance to hit with somebody on base a lot this weekend. So can he turn a swing of the bat into an RBI or 2 or 3? And I think that's going to be a key. Auburn hit 2 solo homers against Texas A&M. That was it. Mm-hmm. Can you link together at bats, and can you get multiple guys on base and then drive them in? And so I think Cooper's at bats are going to be big this weekend.
Yeah, and it feels like his improvement in conference play in the back half of the schedule has come down to, not that he wasn't trying to do this, but just better at bats in those runners on base situations, being more willing to shoot the ball the other way, being more willing to just settle for a ball in play versus going for the big hit and seeing what happens. I feel like that's not that he wasn't trying to just get a ball in play in the first half, but he had more success doing it and pressuring the opposing defense to make a play, stop this guy from scoring. And I do think having more reliable guys on base in front of him is a big part of that. Part of me, I'm thinking the offense is the key to this weekend. And I'm thinking the pitching staff is the key to any possible supers. And I can't really enunciate why I have that thought as of now. But offensively, Cooper makes a lot of sense. Chris Rembert makes a lot of sense. I think Eric Guevara is a little bit of a wild card because he missed some time in conference play, and I think he's a little underrated because of it. He's amazing defensively at third. He was on, he was recognized by the conference for his work at third base. But I think he's the guy that when you're looking at the overall statistics for this Auburn team, Chris Rembert is deadly even the leadoff spot. You are obviously worried about Ike Irish. You're worried about the power of Cooper McMurray. And Guevara might be that guy who's not one of your top priorities when you're game planning for this roster. And I think he can have a big weekend both ways, both offensively and defensively in this one. Give me Eric Guevara. I think I think we're going to see a big weekend out of him, and him being able to, because he has the power ability. He can hit home runs. He has the contact ability. He's not striking out a ton. I want to say he's what is it? He's got maybe 17. He's not walking a ton. He only has 5 walks. Granted, it's only 21 games in conference play, but still, it's a lot of making contact, putting the ball in play, playing exceptional defense. I like Eric Guevara in this one.
Sonny, take us onto the field in a regional. Does it feel different? Is there more pressure? Is there a different energy, or are these guys so good at getting in game mode that it can just kind of feel like a game? Like this is just what you do. You go hit, you go play defense. Is it any different in a regional?
Well, at home it's not. It doesn't feel like it as much. But when I played on the road at Mississippi State at Sanford, it definitely felt like, man, you got to win or like this is over. And when we went to Oregon State on the Super, that felt like it too. It's like, I mean, if you don't do your stuff, you're done. Like this is it. And so playing at home definitely has its advantage. And they got a chance to play the next, I don't know, if they win 5, they go 5-0, they got a chance to play 5 games at home, 5 more games at home.
Yeah. And I was going to ask, even with the fact that the NCAA takes over your facility for a regional and you don't have any more access than anybody else does, like they tightly regulate when you practice, everything. It's still just the fact that you're sleeping in your own bed, you're at home, is still enough to override all of that.
Yep, 100%.
Yeah. I do definitely think that the fact that these aren't teams that are very close and can't necessarily be counted to travel as well as like the Hattiesburg Regional, where Alabama's going to be in a lot of that ballpark. I think that helps too, because the home field advantage for this might be one of the best home field advantages for any regional in the country, simply because these teams, Central Connecticut, I doubt very many fans are coming down from Connecticut on a couple days notice to this game, right? NC State, you could drive that, but still, you'll see some of them here, obviously.
Yeah, they'll bring fans.
They'll bring fans, but I do think it'll be maybe a little lower percentage than some of these other regionals. And so I do think that helps Auburn as well. So
NC State's going to try to do to Auburn what Auburn did to NC State in 2017. Remember, Auburn went to Raleigh and won that regional. And if you're NC State, that is what you're talking about this week, is let's go do to them what they did to us 8 years ago.
Nice.
Yep.
Okay. All right. That's the Barn Baseball Show for Wednesday, May 28th. We will come back to you with some more from the weekend. Obviously, we're hoping to discuss Auburn going to a super regional next week. But for Brad Law, for Sonny the Sheriff, I'm Lindsay Crosby. This has been the Barn Baseball Show.